I returned to Oxford recently to work on my book on value-based contracting. It's been 50 years since I went up as a graduate student in economics, and I made this video of places that were part of my life for 2 years. When I was accepted to Oxford, I chose Balliol College. I didn't know much about the colleges, and I chose Balliol because I'd read the Lord Peter Wimsey books of Dorothy Sayers. It turned out to be an excellent choice. Founded in 1263, Balliol is the second oldest and one of the leading intellectual colleges. Balliol has educated 4 British Prime Ministers in the last 100 years or so. Coming from a former colony, I had no idea what to expect. Friends gave me 2 books to prepare me. One is Nicholas Pevsner's books about architecture of England. This one was The Buildings of Oxfordshire, which provides a detailed architectural tour of the colleges. The second was Evelyn Waugh's novel of Oxford and England between the wars, Brideshead Revisited. If you haven't seen the ITV series starring Jeremy Irons and Anthony Andrews, it's well worth viewing. The front of Balliol greeted me in fall 1974. The front of Balliol is not typical of most older colleges, having been rebuilt in the 19th century in the Victorian style by the architect Waterhouse. Inside the front quadrangle, however, are the remains of 2 13th and 14th century buildings that now house the library and the Old Hall. Linked to the 14th century buildings is another Victorian building designed by Butterfield. With its alternating coloured stone, the chapel somewhat predates the High Victorian style, most prevalent in buildings like the Victoria and Albert Museum in London and Keble College in Oxford, among others. I often paused in front of the Balliol War memorials outside the chapel. The memorials are dark and difficult to see, but the full tragedy of the First and Second World Wars is on display here. There's a section of the First World War memorial that shows men who were accepted to go up to Oxford in September 1914, who instead went to war and did not return. The Second World War memorial also contains German names, including that of Adam von Trott, one of the Hitler conspirators, and a Rhodes Scholar at Balliol. Rooms in college are arranged on staircases. American students will find it strange that you do not share a room. Instead, 50 years ago anyway, you shared a manservant called a scout, and a bedder who cleaned your room and made your bed. In the back quad is a new staircase number 22, where I had a room in my first year. Conveniently, staircase 22 is located next to the hall, built in 1877. Portraits of former masters line the hall. Christopher Hill, a famous Marxist historian, was master during my time. I did not have much to do with him beyond the ceremony of handshaking, a one-on-one interview at the end of each term to assess how I was progressing. I do not think either of us found the process useful. I did get to know some other masters, however, at reunions: Anthony Kenny, Andrew Graham, and Sir Drummond Bone. There's a portrait of Benjamin Jowett, Balliol's great 19th century master, who built Balliol to be the leading college that it remains to this day. The unique feature of the hall is a full pipe organ. Balliol's Christmas party is held in the hall, with the organ thundering, undergraduates singing lustily the familiar carols. Balliol, being the second oldest college, is located dead in the middle of Oxford on Broad Street. Many famous buildings are nearby. The Bridge of Sighs connects buildings of Hertford College, where Evelyn Waugh of Brideshead Revisited fame was a student. The Sheldonian Theatre is the scene of university meetings and graduations. Blackwell's famous bookshop is nearby, next to the western extension of the Bodleian Library across the street, and the Indian Institute, scene of a famous sit-in in 1973. This is Brasenose Lane, with its view of the Radcliffe Camera and All Souls College. I had seminars with the famous economist Sir John Hicks at All Souls, and Brasenose College, where my friend Geoffrey Yu was a member. The front of Brasenose is typical of older colleges, the type of architecture that Balliol replaced with the Waterhouse buildings in the 19th century. Not all buildings near Balliol are colleges, though. On Longwall Street is the former headquarters of Morris Motors, developer of the famous MG sports car. William Morris, later Lord Nuffield, was a major benefactor of Oxford. At Nuffield College, I had lectures on microeconomics with the famous economist Jim Mirrlees, and on cost-benefit analysis with Ian Little. Jim Mirrlees won the Nobel Prize in Economics in the 1990s. In my opinion, Ian Little should have as well. The principles I learned from Ian Little have been fundamental to my practice in healthcare and to the companies I have founded. A little further away is Magdalen College, where I would go to hear the choir sing evensong when I did not have an evening class. In addition to seminars, I had lectures in the Institute of Economics in the St. Cross building. Built in the 1960s, St. Cross is a not unpleasant addition to traditional Oxford architecture. Unusually, though, I did not have a tutor in my college. Instead, my tutor was Dr. Nick Stern, now Lord Stern, in St. Catherine's College, which is another example of Oxford 1960s architecture. On the other side of Oxford are a number of colleges, including Christ Church. I had econometrics tutorials in Pembroke College, across the street from Christ Church. The master of the choristers in my day was the famous Simon Preston at Christ Church. Christ Church was also the setting for some of Brideshead Revisited, as it was the college of Sebastian Flight. Just up the street from Christ Church is the Oxford City Hall, where I sang the Brahms Requiem with the University College Choir in 1975. In my second year, I lived out in rooms in a wonderful house in North Oxford, 22 St. Margaret's Road. I took the opportunity to go for a run while I was there to see the old house. All too soon my student days were ending and it was exam time. At Oxford you take exams in a suit, white shirt, full academic dress, including gown and bow tie, in the examination schools. Summer 1976 was the hottest on record. One professor proctoring us actually fell asleep in the afternoon. I came third in my class, turned down a research fellowship to do a DPhil. In hindsight, that seems crazy, but I was off to London and my actuarial student days at Commercial Union. My PhD had to wait another 40 years. I owe a great deal to Balliol and to Oxford, and to the tutors and professors that I studied with there. I don't think I appreciated how much at the time, but as I progressed in my career, I found myself applying lessons that I learned during my graduate student days there. Thank you, Oxford.